Hey everybody, Dr. Melinda Hawes here from Nashville. I'm filling in for Dr. Bill Adams. We've got a special No Spin Live. We are talking with Drs. Ashley Gordon and Dr. Lori Cassis about social media influencers and what they're saying about breast implant illness and how that's affecting us in our practices and where we want to go from here. Ashley, fill us in on this latest social media influencer.
Well, a social media influencer who has over 1 million followers and I think has a lot of good information on her Instagram, posted last week that she was no longer be performing breast augmentation, which I thought was really surprising because she is someone that has breast implants. She says she's had her implants for over 20 years and hasn't had a problem. And then she's also said in other posts that she hasn't had a patient report any of the symptoms of breast implant illness. So I just thought it was a little weird that she would kind of suddenly out of the blue, she said she'd been thinking about it, but she just decided that she wasn't going to perform breast augmentation anymore. And then later on in the comments, someone commented about how much she charged for explant surgery. And then she also clarified and says that she doesn't do explantation surgery for breast implant illness. So she's no longer going to put them in, but she's also not going to take them out. And she is always presenting herself as someone who really wants to understand the science and really is a scientist. She's Harvard trained, and she's a board certified plastic surgeon. So I'm a little bit at a loss for
where she stands. What's the point?
Right.
I mean, is she just trying to narrow her practice? Interesting.
I don't think so, because she is a female plastic surgeon. I think a huge part of her practice was breast and body. And I think, for me, like I've had my implants for 17 years and I've not had a problem. And I have thousands of patients that haven't had a problem. But I have had patients in recent years who have felt like either their implants weren't the right choice for them. Maybe they developed an autoimmune disease, and although it could never be proven, they just felt more at ease. They were having anxiety with having their implants. And so, of course, like I want to explant my own patients if they feel like the devices are causing them harm.
If you feel like implants aren't the thing, if you weren't going to put them in anymore, wouldn't you take them out?
Right. And, of the patients with autoimmune disease, I have one recently who had all the markers were negative, and she had early Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is inflammation of the thyroid gland. And, I'm going to stay in touch with her when she's outside of the postoperative period to see, did her lab work get better? What's going on with her thyroid? Does she develop any other symptoms? Because I think it's really important, because I am a scientist, to really follow these patients and listen to their concerns. But I mean, this is getting out of hand.
I agree. And follow-up. Lori, talk about follow-up.
Well, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to kind of make this, post, in my opinion, not very responsibly, because if 1 million people are following her and she's making the statement she's not putting in implants anymore, yet she has them, it's so contradictory. I love Ashley's comment about following the science. So the problem has been we don't have any scientific evidence to prove that breast implants cause an illness. However, we do know that inflammatory changes in a person causes or exacerbates other illnesses, so inflammatory bowel disease, etc. So is it possible that these women that are having issues actually have an inflammatory problem in how they manage inflammation? Absolutely. But the reality is, if someone comes to you and says that they think that their implants are causing a problem, we need to database these people. We need to collect that data. We need to understand what their markers are pre-op and then follow them post-operatively in an organized way so that we can produce some kind of data collection science, like evaluate what the data is instead of just, being kind of crazy about this.
4,000 breast implants were placed in the U.S. last year. Is that right? 400,000 breast implants. 400,000 were placed in the U.S. last year.
Well, actually patients, so probably 800.
So probably 800,000.
Yeah.
400,000 patients had breast implants placed last year in the United States alone. We know these breast implant illness groups are up in the tens of thousands. People are seeing more of them, yet I've talked to some of these patients and they state clearly implants are for some people, just not for them.
Right.
So Dr. Cat talked about that the statistics don't show an association, but statistics aren't people. But statistics are people, right?
Well, in those cases, you're based on patients.
Correct.
And I think the hard part is, we know this from some of those studies. I mean, they weren't randomized controlled clinical trials. A lot of the data is like flawed because it's self-reporting from patients on the phone years later, not from actually a physician examining them. And then I think the big problem with like these breast implant illness groups, they are drawing women from around the world. And you guys know, like we have 3 implant manufacturers here that make gel implants, one that makes the ideal implant. But in Europe, I don't know how many manufacturers there are. And we're talking about, grouping women that have implants from the 80s, from the 90s, from Germany, from the Netherlands, from
It's really
Mexico.
difficult.
Like, how can we? It's just impossible to do that.
I don't think we can have clean scientific studies, but we absolutely can follow every patient that comes in. Every board certified plastic surgeon should be putting their patient in a database to track the actual implant for the lifetime of the implant. And that's an initiative that the FDA is supporting with ASPS and now with ASAPS as well. We want to database every implant. Then we want to track every implant that comes out. And then we want to track every patient that has symptoms that are, not explainable by science at this point, and hopefully will be when we get to.
And I think that's going to take, a leap on a lot of plastic surgeons who don't believe that this is a real thing. Like, we need to approach it as like, we don't understand it, but we want to study it. And so that means, listening to these patient concerns and being empathetic and really hearing what they're saying and not being dismissive, because I think the being dismissive on the part of a lot of surgeons is what has led to this,
this pushback from patients.
Yes.
Right, but Ashley, on the other hand, I have 2 cases now where 2 of my saline smooth implants from 18 and 20 years ago have decided that their implants are causing a constellation of symptoms. And both of them got educated, unfortunately, before coming back to me on the internet.
Yes.
So they came to me with a plan. You need to do an en bloc resection, which is basically a cancer operation of my normal saline implant that doesn't have any scar tissue around it.
Right. I had this exact conversation last week. Like, I will not take the capsule off the posterior.
And it's so difficult because the second you disagree, they've been told online, if your surgeon won't do this, they're not a good plastic.
But on the Facebook page, on the front of it, it says like, we are not offering medical advice. We are not doctors. But then it says like, all implants cause breast implant illness. And it's like,
so here's the thing. We, and we being the plastic surgery channel and the heads of these different patient advocacy groups like Jamie Cook, of Viva, we have to get together in a collaborative community. We just do. We have to be talking. We have to figure out what's the best way to track these with these women that we want to listen to and we want to take care of. We don't want them to fall prey to physicians that are going to take advantage of them. That's the key. Most of us are very responsible and want to treat our own patients that we put implants in. We don't want them going somewhere else.
A lot of the patients also, what's out there online is like, they feel like we're in bed with pharma or like the government is behind this. But like, we have implants. Like, I have implants. I would never put anything in a woman that I wouldn't put in myself.
Right.
Exactly.
And, what about all the cancer patients who without breast implants, like they may not be a candidate for reconstruction?
We had a moratorium on silicone implants, and there was actually a 3-month period where we didn't have an option.
Yeah.
And the cancer patient is the one that suffered, and that, that's why the implants came back for them, as a study group patient. And so I was participating in that study with a mentor from 91 until they stopped it, I think in 98. But the issue is that breast implants are an important part of our reconstructive process, and also our changes to the breast, like postpartum after babies, massive weight loss changes, or gals that just are born without any breast development. They're here to stay. So how do we make them as safe as possible? Everybody has to work together. And that's been the pushback that I've seen in the 30 years, that a lot of women, when I say, I need to register your implant with the manufacturer because you have a warranty with them for life, they'll say, well, I'm not sure I want them to have my information. And I say, Are you kidding me? Don't you want to be part of a group of people that knows what's going on with your particular implant? So there is pushback from patients for privacy issues, but I think we can get around that because, HIPAA is pretty important. I think we all, practice, HIPAA to the letter. So, but I think we have to work together because making a statement that you're never going to put a breast implant in as a board certified plastic surgeon really doesn't make any sense. Making a statement,
and we all narrow our practice at different times. Like I don't do free flaps or cleft lips anymore.
Right.
But if you're not putting them in, why wouldn't you take them out?
Yeah.
I don't really understand. But it is important that we move forward. It is important we all move forward together. And it's about, at some point we find out maybe there's a certain type of patient that really isn't best served by an implant, but they can know that on the front end that because of your genetic type or your background or your genetic predispositions or where you live or whatever else, you are higher risk to not do well with implants. If we can figure that piece out, we do everybody a great service.
I think patients should embrace patients that are worried that they have this. Like, talk to your board certified plastic surgeon, find a doctor you trust, and let them treat you as an individual with the symptoms that you have, with the type of implant that you have, how long you've had it. If you have capsular contracture, we know that capsule's calcified, we know we need to get that out. But let's not put you in a situation where your implants are out, but now you have lymphedema in your arm for the rest of your life because
somebody got into the lymph nodes. Exactly. And the Aesthetic Society's worked. We've developed some talking points about BII for just the reasons we've discussed, is that we've got to be able to talk with our patients and not be dismissive and hear them and understand, because they don't feel good. They feel badly for whatever reason.
They're incredibly anxious, which like a lot of this anxiety, because they read all these things and then they're like, oh my God, do I have this? Do I have that? And like anxiety feeds on itself, and then they don't sleep and they're having nightmares. And
then they have a plastic surgeon who rolls their eyes or isn't sympathetic or says you're crazy. We've already studied all this, but we haven't studied exactly this.
Right.
And things change.
No,
ALCL, BIA ALCL didn't exist 25 years ago.
Right, exactly.
So
I'm committed to the science and to working with you
Commit
guys
to the science and the patients and
And
together forward.
And really tracking every implant that goes in a patient until that implant is out of the patient. So the natural history of the implant and then the patient's natural history.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And it's a long-term process, And
It's going to take years.
I'm committed.
We're committed.
I'm committed.
All
Hi,
right.
ladies. Always a
That's
pleasure.
us. No Spin Live. We're out. Thanks, guys.